bottom for me.
Yeah.
So I don't get killed.
I'll hold it.
kind of dirty.
Just a little.
Just a little. I'll probably have that all over me before it's over. Yeah, this is just a 6-inch. I think it's a 6-inch chimney sweep. Just a brush and fiberglass poles you can put together. I think I got these. You can get them most hardware stores, or I think I got this one actually from Amazon. I had one for years that was Daddy's, and it had a square brush, and it didn't exactly fit this, but I'd just cram it down in there and make it work. And then never really gave it a whole lot of thought, but I saw where somebody had done the same thing and forced it down in there, and it actually disjointed a couple of pieces of their flue pipe, and they didn't know it. It was in their attic, and then when they built a fire, the embers and stuff went out into their attic, and it caught their house on fire and burned it down. And I thought to myself, that's the same thing I'm doing. I believe I'll not do that anymore. So I got online and bought one that did fit.
It's just wire, or what is that?
It's just a wire brush. And it fits the inside diameter of that pipe really well. And any kind of scale or buildup, the creosote that's on that pipe, it brushes it all the way to the bottom. And what I generally do is take a shop vac and just shop vac out the inside of the stove and get all that debris that it knocked off and vacuum it up, and then go dump the vacuum out somewhere outside, and it's ready to build a fire in. All right, what I've got here is a little piece of fatwood, rich pine. It's just a piece of pine that's got that died and all the rosin went back to the core. And it's really, really, really flammable, for those that don't know. You don't want to burn a lot of this, big pieces of it in your stove because it has so much creosote in it. But to start a fire with, it's fine. And it's a really, really, really good fire starter. And the woods is full of it. We have just a never-ending supply of it around here. And a lot of times when I'm in the woods doing other things, if I come across a piece, I'll generally get it. There's all kinds of ways of building a fire. It's just the way I do it. A lot of people use a torch or whatever, but most people have a little bit better kindling than what I do. This is just a piece of an old pallet, and it's been outside, so it's got a little bit of dampness in it. But we'll get it going. And I'll just kind of TP it up, not the same every time, just kind of random. And what that does is allow plenty of airspace, because that's what it's got to have get going good. And then once you get a bed of coals, then the coals will burn your wood, but you got to have air to get it started. This wood right here's a little damp. I'm hoping it'll burn, but I believe it will. I'll usually watch it a minute to be sure it's going to catch, and it definitely is with that fatwood. And I'll close the door, open up the air vents. I won't close it all the way. I'll close it just a little bit and let it start pulling that air across the flame, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You can literally hear the air sucking through there over top of it, and that's just the outside of the chimney sucking the air through, and it pulls it across the fire, and it gives it plenty of oxygen to get going. And once I realize it's going good, I'll get another couple of pieces of wood, because once that catches and starts burning, it'll fall down, and then I'll try to find a couple of pieces of wood that's pretty dry, bigger wood, to start putting on there so it'll catch it. And then once you get it going, you've pretty well got it. And then you can pretty much just shut the door and walk away. So this stove came out of my daddy's house, and I'm pretty sure it's a homemade stove. It don't have a brand or a name or anything on it, but it's made like a Fisher style wood stove. And he didn't. He burned a little wood in that house at the time, but the chimney caught on fire, and just because of the way the flue was plumbed, he got a little bit scared of it and wasn't going to use it anymore. And he told me I could have it if I wanted it when we built this house. So when we finally got the house built and was ready to move in it, I went out there and loaded it on the truck, which was a pretty hard process to get it up. His base, he had it in the basement as well, and his basement has 2 levels. So we had to go up a set of steps with it, and it probably weighs 400 or 500 pounds. And it was a pretty hard process to get the thing up and get it out and get it actually loaded on the truck. And then once we got it here, it was only 2 of us once we got here with it, to carry it from the basement door all the way back here to the back end of the basement, they're really heavy. But it's been a really good stove. Never gave any problems really. It works good, heats good, but it is a homemade stove, best I can tell. It don't have any kind of company markings on it whatsoever. And a lot of people ask how it heats our whole house, it being in the basement. Our basement's unfinished, which means it don't have a ceiling in it other than just the floor joists, and it's just radiant heat that goes up. And once you get a fire going, it takes it a little while. Once it begins to heat the whole basement, probably 3 to 4 hours into it, and I usually keep it going, keep a lot of wood in it to get it up to that point, especially if it's cold. Once it gets the basement heated, then all that radiant heat rises and goes up through the floor and heats the upstairs pretty well just from radiant heat. And it works pretty good, especially back toward the back of the house, directly above the stove. If you're barefooted, the floor is really warm where you walk on it, but it does heat the whole house. It heats it good enough, if I really keep a lot of wood in it and keep it going, that we'll crack a window or door or something to try to let some of the heat out. It's a kind of a balancing act as far as how much wood and how hot I want to get it, as opposed to the temperature outside. So a lot of people will build or kind of duct their fire heat into their central heat ducts, and then just turn their fan on upstairs and blow it that way. And you can do that, and I've thought about doing that, but we don't really have to, because it does such a good job just from the radiant heat. If our house was, if we had a finished basement and had a ceiling down here, then I would have to do that. So the wood that we burn is generally oak, or some type of oak, or maple. I mean, there's all kinds of wood that'll burn, but some burn better than others and will make better heat than others. Around here, most all the oaks is what we generally try to burn, because it has a pretty good ratio of burn time to heat production. In other words, stuff like poplar and stuff, it burns really, really good, but it burns really fast and don't put out a lot of heat. That's why we use the oak trees, and some hickory if we've got it, or maple. Don't burn any pine in it, just simply because of the resin in it will make build up in the flue a whole lot sooner, and sometimes to the point it's dangerous, and you have a chimney fire, and we don't want that. The wood that we burn, we got a pretty good friend that has a clear cutting business, and he has always got wood from cutting right-of-ways and whatever he does, and he sells firewood on the side, and he sells it in rounds, and then he brings it here, and we buy it, and he brings it here and dumps it, and then I do all the splitting of it and getting it in the house. We don't have really a big enough piece of land, and it's not roaded to the point where I could drive up in there and get my own. So that's just the way we do it. We buy it from him in dump truck loads, just the firewood rounds, and then I split them and get them inside to burn. And on the top of the stove, I always keep a kettle of water of some kind, just for once it heats, it creates steam and just puts moisture back in there, and it's not quite as dry. That's an old-timey trick from long time ago. Some people don't do it, but I just think it's kind of cool, because it's just one of the old ways. The old pot that's on top of the stove is an old Dutch oven, and I think it belonged to my great aunt. I got it from my mother years and years ago just for this purpose, and I think she told me it came from would be her aunt, her mother's sister, so it's quite old. We've used the pot probably for, we've been here 28 years, 29 years, whatever, and we've had it ever since then. I've always used it, and we have a spigot downstairs where we can just walk over and stick it under it and turn it on, fill it up, and as I come down and add wood to the fire, I always check the level of the water. And if it starts getting low, I'll just add more back to it. So one thing that I've not had very long is a little fan on top of the stove. I should have had one of these years and years and years ago. I just never did, but it's a little just a heat powered fan, and you set it on top of the stove, and as the stove gets hot and generates heat, the heat in turn turns the fan blades, and it's just a way to move a little bit of the heat. It don't push it very far, but it will move it some, and it's a neat little thing. My two favorite days of the year are the first fire and the last fire. I'm always real excited about getting to build a fire and fooling. I like to fool with the wood and split wood and build fires, and I just enjoy that. But by spring, it's not near as fun as it was in the beginning. So we do have a central heat pump that heats. We also have a little small, little flush mount electric stove in the living room, and we heat some with that too. But during the cold days and the cold parts of the winter, we try to heat predominantly with the wood, and that keeps, once we get it up and going and get the house warm, then that keeps those other two sources of heat from running very much and keeps from running the power bill up. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with us for our first fire of the season. It's always a good, joyful time for me, and we all hope you come back often to help us celebrate Appalachia.